Well, tonight on Newsfeed PM, the late edition, we focus on how disinformation on social media contributes to reputational damage. Looking at the Masaka case, and we're keen to hear your views on this one, right? Send us a WhatsApp on 072-110-5584, or feel free to give us a call, 010-594-6010. Let's get into our guests and our panel. Of course, we're joined by Reputation1st MD Tshepo Matseba, who is in studio with us. Also in studio with us, social commentator Lorato Tshenkeng, and associate at the digital law company Rorke Wilson, also in studio with us, gentlemen. Good evening, and thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate it. I mean, this is one of those things that I think if you live on Twitter, certainly there's no way that you don't know about what's happening with Masaka, because it's an account that certainly has a lot of followers, has gotten people quite angry sometimes, you know, emotive. Let's say an emotive account. I think maybe that's the most responsible thing to say. But when we started seeing the charges, particularly with relation to the criminal injuria and the Cybercrimes Act, Lorato, I'll let you go first.
Sure.
Surprised?
Not at all. It was a matter of time, Naledi, because unlike many other accounts, he's one of the few that, you know, as much as he speaks and spews bile and, you know, write a whole lot of negative things about people, he does not hide his identity. But if you look at many other accounts, there are many of those which are, think about the not so very rude account, right? That's somebody who put together an account and on a regular basis they put out information, sometimes false, in fact, most of the times false, and sometimes, you know, impugning on people's reputation. And because he, and call it stupid guts, right? He had the courage to, you know, put his face out there, but also he's a socialite. He's always seen at, you know, lifestyle scenes and the like. So it was only a matter of time, because we've seen him beaten up, you know, once or twice in public, because people did not appreciate the kind of conduct that, you know, generally he was, you know, almost putting out in public.
Yeah, you know, Tshepo, I think immediately about, you know, if you watch his account, and other accounts that are similar. So let's not focus on Masaka here and focus on other accounts just generally across social media where, you know, something is written about you, whether true or untrue, but, you know, something that certainly isn't something that you want to be out in the public, for instance, perhaps something that you consider even a little bit embarrassing. I wonder if I suppose the discussion around reputational damage was always bound to happen. We've seen similar cases before. Is this something that we're going to be seeing a lot more of? So individuals perhaps that are quite high profile saying, no, you're ruining my reputation.
Yeah, we've seen some actually discussions that ended up in court. Basitsana Kumalo, case in point, where she challenged someone and she came out a winner in that specific case. And I think that people are beginning to speak a little bit more, to be confident to challenge the so-called social media curse or champions or bullies that often present themselves as the untouchables. And so very often they can say what they wish and get away with it because no one actually is willing to challenge them. And actually, often, no one is willing to be dragged in the mud through the conversation. So sometimes people take the other option, which is to keep quiet and hope that it goes away. But for bullies such as this one, you may find that the more you keep quiet, the more they work harder and press harder to exert pain on that sore wound. And it is bullying at its best. And beyond reputation, it has an impact on individual lives. You know, research actually shows that in South Africa, cyberbullying contributes to at least pain and suffering of at least more than 50% of young people below the age of 25, who may in the process actually consider self-harm, including suicide. And so it is not about purely reputation, harm to one's image, which is all important, but it's also placing people's lives at risk. And I think that South Africans are beginning to grow towards understanding that they can do something about it. In other markets, if you look at the US, people will not hesitate to actually take you on to, legally and otherwise as quickly as possible, because that market digitally has evolved and developed in earlier days.
Yeah.
And so I think there's an opportunity in SA, at least for education, so that groups and individuals and entities especially can understand that they can do something about it. And more importantly, for the social media platforms themselves, to start to do some more education instead of, those dark, small fine print that you never actually get to read the terms and conditions. That they can educate the user to be far more responsible, so that we don't end up in a situation where all creators are attacked, because there are people who are doing great work. But the risk here is that there's a far more growing population of people who just don't care, and they make it their job to go into people's deep personal lives, that at times actually results in harm.
Yeah, the reality is, though, we've seen also these social media platforms, boom, right? They've just grown so tremendously big. And I wonder if from a legislative point of view, we've been able to catch up, Rorke, right? The charges that he's facing, for instance, criminal injury and then violating Section 19 of the Cybercrimes Act. I actually went to look at Section 19 of the Cybercrimes Act, and I couldn't. Perhaps you can talk to us about legislation and whether or not we actually have the laws in place to deal with what Tshepo's calling even cyberbullying and hate speech, criminal injury online. Have we thought that far?
We have thought that far, and it's really scary in the world right now. We've seen how fast technology grows and how time and time again through revolution after revolution our legislations just can't keep up. Thankfully, South Africa is an amazing country, and we're one of the first in the world to actually legislate on the cyberspace and try to put in protections when it comes to cyberbullying, sextortion, so many things. So we're looking, a lot stronger than a lot of the world in that regard. With regards to Musa's case, so you referenced Section 19, so we had a look at that, and that's the sentencing guidelines, and it sounds like the most likely charge under the Cybercrimes Act that will be laid against Musa is the case of cyberbullying. And for that to be successful, they'll need to prove that Musa shared this information in order to intentionally cause harm and distress to these people. So it's quite similar to harassment as it already exists. And as I said, we're doing quite well. We're taking a lot of laws that we already have and we're adapting them, such as criminal injury, which means we don't have to try and play catch up. We can use what we already have and take these people down and make sure that this bullying can stop. Yeah,
I don't know how much you can help us with some of the technology, but Lorato made the point, Rorke, that with Kaula's case, what you've got is someone who's got a popular account, but we know his face, we know his name. With many other accounts, we don't know who's behind them. So when someone wants to then take legal action against one account that is faceless, is there technology to find out who's behind it? Have we gotten there?
Yeah, there's lots of technology. It can be quite difficult, especially if you're working with someone who is quite skilled and at hiding their identity. But we've got a lot of resources we work with at the Digital Law Company, and we do have the legislation in place. So if you have an anonymous account that's bullying you or harassing you or doing anything like that, the court can compel your service providers to provide that information to you and make it easier for you to identify this person.
Yeah. Can we talk about why this is such a big trend right now, Lorato? Here's the thing. There's a sense right now that depending on how big of a following you have on social media, you wield quite a bit of power.
Yeah. So as Tshepo was mentioning earlier, firstly, there are many content creators with humongous following, and they're doing amazing work, and people follow them for the right reasons, right? And you have a handful of these, let's call them rogues, right, who deliberately, impugn people's reputations, who, put people's lives at harm. And even to a great extent, particularly where they would expose kids, children, when they put up a family, then they put a child there. Ordinarily, there should be consent whenever you put up an image of an underage child. But people like those don't care, because so it's almost as if breaking the rules is easier, right? I suspect, and I know Rorke, speaks about the availability of laws. Think about this. You and I are inundated with calls from call centers, one person trying to sell me one thing or the other.
Yes.
But there's the information regulator who's supposed to be helping us with this.
Yes.
So while Tshepo is optimistic about, the platform should be doing something about education, we just now know that Facebook have decided they are going to do away with fact checkers. They are now going to do, you know, some almost relaxed way of content moderation. What does that mean? It means that hate speech is going to grow on these platforms, and because people are now going to have to use their own, you know, sense of objectivity. My objectivity and your objectivity may
Very
not be is different, right?
Yeah.
So what it means is that we're going to see it becoming a bigger trend than it is now, and I think this is where now we need to be thinking about the law. But unfortunately, again, typically, if you have to find the services of a lawyer, and that is why I guess Tshepo was talking to, people would rather than, you know, say, I hope that when I keep quiet, it will go away.
And sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as Lorato there talks about the softening of fact-checking on social media platforms, where does that leave those concerned about their reputation? Perhaps we can get some tools on the other side of this and what you can do, if at all, to shield yourself from reputational damage caused by even others on social media. We take a short break. We're back in a moment. Welcome back. So he's a controversial celebrity blogger, Masaka, and he's found himself in a little bit of trouble with the law lately, with a criminal case having been postponed to the end of January. But we're keeping you updated really on what's come out of it, and also the lessons that we take from it, not just for those that do post on social media as a way of seeing just how much trouble they can get themselves in, but also for those on the other side of it, those at risk of reputational damage as caused by those that do use the platform and have massive following, as we see in this particular case and many other accounts as well on social media. Is there a tool? You know, there's the belief that, you know, social media is also a platform for you to allow your followers to get to know you, especially if you are somewhat high profile and it's a, you know, a window into your life. But it seems that in some case that window into your life could be open a little too wide.
Yeah, so the difficulty with social media is that winning a rat race doesn't change the fact that you are still a rat. And by that, and that was somebody else who said that. By that I mean that if you participate in the jungle, you're going to have to get dirty at some point, and understand that it gets dirty and be prepared for it. And part of it is to try to articulate constructive information. So you share insights that are building, insights that create positivity, that help people. So you solve problems, or you help somebody to bump into information that they wouldn't ordinarily have access to, or that they wouldn't have thought about. And that way, collectively, you create an equity of content. That by the time I go to a search engine platform to search your name, Tshepo Matseba, you've already built some positive equity to an extent that by the time somebody else, like the case we're seeing now, where somebody goes and spreads negative information about you, tries to taint your reputation, that the positive content outweighs the negative content. In fact, most of the time we get individuals in senior roles who say, Mchana, can you help me delete this thing of Google? And you realize pretty soon that actually it's not practical or possible to delete that content of Google. What we can do is to try to help you to position yourself as a thought leader, as a contributor to society, who's a person who's trying to contribute positive content. And there are many easy ways of doing that. You don't have to be very intelligent or very sophisticated to write complex content. You can just go and search for codes that have to do with your industry and share codes.
Yeah.
Pictures that have to do with your industry and share those pictures. You don't have to tell us everything about your dog, your husband or wife or cat, because when things go wrong in that relationship and you start removing yourself from social media platform, as we've seen allegedly that some people said, well, Julius has now removed the wife and the wife has removed him. That was alleged, it's not my words. But the consequences is that it's because why people participate now in your personal life is because you made it public. You told us who you are, you told us who the family is and what they look like. You showed us your house and the dogs and the cats. And so don't expect any thing else other than society and social media users are going to participate. So the key instrument that I would say individuals and organizations should try and use is to avoid participating in a few things, including religion, politics, and sexism, and of course, racism. If you avoid those, you are halfway through there.
Yeah, those are important ones because we've seen careers ending as a result of tackling some of those very big themes. Rorke, talk to me about understanding the legislation. One of the things that I am concerned about, though, is as we speak about, you know, reputational damage, for instance, if you are a victim of what and I'll say with inverted commas, cyberbullying, because that may not necessarily be the outcome where this particular case is concerned. But if we do have, you know, those that are powerful and take the matter up legally, there's a sense that they've got the legal resources to do so. But for a young person who does not have, you know, the money to take the legal route, what are the options? And really, are we starting to make, I suppose, justice on cybercrime more and more accessible?
Well, thankfully, you don't actually have to have the money for the legal route, and that's what the Cybercrimes Act has done for us. That's what the charge of criminal injury does for us. These are criminal charges. So that means that when someone commits criminal injury, so I say Naledi is a horrible person and 3 other slurs and say that to everyone, you don't have to take money out of your resources to do that. The state says that is bad enough that we will take that into our hands and go and charge that case for you. So all you have to do is go to the police station, your nearest police station, and inform them that you would like to lay a charge of criminal injury. Another thing you can do, if you don't want to go to the criminal route, say maybe you don't have enough evidence, because in civil suits the burden of proof is a lot lower, so you don't need that much evidence. You don't necessarily always need lawyers. You are able to go to a magistrate's court and create an application for an interdict. So if someone wants to post something or has posted something you want down, you can go to a magistrate's court and then make an application for that yourself. You don't always need to have a lawyer helping you along. And that's one thing we really try to educate people on at the Digital Law Company, is that you don't need big fancy lawyers, you don't need lots of money, you can take it into your own hands. And we're trying to let people know that bullying and criminal injury and insulting and things like this are actually legal. And there are things you can do, and you don't have to just sit back and let it happen and let that bully take up space. You can take the law into your own hands. It's not expensive and it's not totally inaccessible. Yeah,
I think that's a relief for many that are listening to that. Certainly for you know, I'll admit myself as well. What we do have though, Lorato, and you're on social media a lot, aren't you? Big brand on social media. You do have people that, for instance, are able to continue their you know, growing their viewership or their following because of some of the controversial things they say and do, the clickbaiting. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about, you know, how that is working and maybe how dangerous it is. But perhaps finish the thought around sanitized use of social media to protect yourself from the trolls, if you will.
So in fact, I wanted to start here where Tshepo was talking around, you know, perhaps there could be a way that you manage the social media presence. In fact, I even go to the point where you don't interact a lot on social media, right? You don't have to be on social media for you to be trending on social media. Right? So you could be at a family party, somebody takes a video, and you are now known everywhere else. Right? And then you become a story for days on end. So I often say that we must not only be worried about how we play on social media. And that's why Tshepo was talking to, don't be racist, don't be a bigot, you know, don't beat people up. Right? Just be a good human being.
In real life
In real life. Because then that way, you know, you'll not be caught, you know, doing all these other things. So in terms of, you know, the question that you were then asking, I guess one of the things, Naledi, we then have to think about is, while people want to always be careful, right? They actually, a lot of them don't think that WhatsApp is a social media platform, right? It may be something.
Relaxed on WhatsApp.
We are always very relaxed on WhatsApp. How many people have been in trouble because of screenshots? How many people have been in trouble because of voice notes, right? So again, I guess it's a paradigm thing where people think that, no, listen, because this is not public, this is not, you know, seen by people that are not known to me, because WhatsApp is a safe space, circle of trust. These are people that I know, that know me, and therefore I think that it's, you know, it's safer for me to share. And it's equally, and I think it's important for all of us to be mindful of that, to say, what does it mean when I share something? And it could be something as innocent as somebody says something, it may be a rumor, and I think that passing it on makes sense. Can they passing it on, I'm actually, you know, now contributing to the bullying that, you know, unbeknown to me, now, you know, we've created a bigger thing of bullying people, and I could have stopped by asking is this worth sharing?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us need to be doing a lot more of that, being conscious of the things that we share, particularly in the circles of trust.
Yeah, that's interesting. And, you know, actually, when you talk about WhatsApp also being a social media platform, and we needing to be aware of that, I immediately think of this matter of Andy Swamengo and Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge, in the exchange of WhatsApp conversations that has now become the center of this tribunal. And stay with us because we'll be analyzing that story as well at around 9:15 this evening. So a real clear reminder that all social media platforms are equally powerful. Some tools that we can use, perhaps resources that you can direct our viewers to, especially where it becomes, you know, how to safeguard that reputation. Just final thoughts from you guys.
So, you know, one of the basic instruments that you can use is to use search engine platforms to search your name so that you can actually see what people say about you. Whether or not you're on social media is irrelevant. But, you know, beyond these tools and AI and instruments, there's something fundamental that we need not forget, that if you keep to your values and you remind yourself constantly that I have to do the right thing at work and I have to do the right thing at home and at the pub and at the church. So you can't switch off your values when you leave work and switch them on back when you come back. So there has to be an alignment between your behavior consistently throughout, because the values actually are actually guiding principles that will protect you from any of this shenanigans, to a point where you don't actually need the instruments, physical instruments and technology to survive. You actually your conduct, because if you minimize saying that word when you feel the tension in your system, you might actually just prevent yourself and protect yourself from serious reputational damage, but also damage that can harm your employer, as we've seen with the case of Fly Affair and a particular broadcaster's employee.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Your values never switch off. A good takeaway there. Rorke, final resources, things that you think our viewers will benefit from?
Yeah, so at the risk of beating a dead horse here, the first resource is just be a lacquer person, online and in person. But just to touch on what Lorato was saying earlier about what you say on WhatsApp, there's also legal implications for that. So you as a reporter and a journalist have a lot of roles and responsibilities, and as soon as what you say is seen by one other person, a whole legal framework applies. That exact same framework applies to all of us on every single social media, WhatsApp included. The moment that is seen by one other person, all the laws apply. You have to make sure that you're being truthful, that you're not defaming people, that you're just being a lacquer person. And I really want to reiterate that. The better you are in life, the better life is to you.
Okay, be a lacquer person. Really, really interesting. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And I think that this is a conversation that certainly needs to continue. People continuing to use social media more and more. And so the tools are necessary. We'll be watching, of course, the case of Masaka really closely. He is expected to appear in court on the 29th of January. We've got a caller on the line, it seems. Anonymous in Limpopo. Anonymous, good evening. Anonymous, good evening. Yes, thank you for calling.
It's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
How are you, and good evening to your panelists.
I appreciate it.
Yes, man, thank you for this topic. It's very fascinating topic, but what is important is that we need to educate our people about the social media, the use of social media, because we are misusing the social media. You know, I remember Professor Elo Lumumba once said social media is like AK-47. It can protect the nation or destroy the nation. Sometimes when we are using this picture, Facebook, we don't read our posts before we just press the send button. We must read and understand or review our posts, that they must not go to the destroy or have a negative impact to the people who are going to it. Like using derogatory comments or preaching fake news, speaking lies about people. some of us we just want to character assassinate other people on social media to just gain likes and receive, which is wrong. I think if you can maybe regulate the use of social media and maybe even try to say those who are finding
so I think your point is driven, and it's a great place for us to wrap things up, right? Reminding us again of how to conduct ourselves and also the dangers of social media. Tshepo Matseba, Rorke Wilson and Lorato Tshenkeng in our panel this evening. We take a short break. More news on the other side.